Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Tap In Par podcast. I am your host, Baden Delaney, and you can find me here every Tuesday and Thursday covering all things golf. Since the pandemic, golf has become more popular than ever, and I am here to bring you golf news, updates, hot takes, and so much more, so that you are always in the loop. For those of you that are new here, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Tap In Par podcast. Last week in episode 1, we focused on the rise of golf in recent years and what has contributed to that growth. I hope you enjoyed that episode, but today we're going to switch gears a little bit and get into a more nitty-gritty theme of golf. And that is specifically the mental aspect of golf and how hard it is to manage the mental side of golf and how it affects play and so much more. Golf is a sport that takes physical prowess to some degree, seems to be a sport that brings out the best and sometimes worst of athletes when they are in the heat of a round. The game is hard, and being mentally strong can make all the difference in the world when trying to perform well. On that note, I think it would be a perfect time to introduce our guest for this episode. He is an established golfer with a handicap of 10, has been playing golf since middle school, and is one of the best golfers I know personally. Mr. Josh Piccotti. Josh, thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with me and give the viewers some valuable insight.
Thank you for having me, Baden. It's great to be here. As a golfer who's played for a long time, it's going to be excited to sit down and kind of talk about what I know about golf and the questions you have for me.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. Golf is a game that many people look at as lacking the need of true athletic ability and strength and things of that nature, but where the sport may lack in the physical department, it makes up for it with just how demanding it is mentally. According to PerformanceGolf.com, one of the best golfers of all time, Jack Nicklaus, once said, "Golf is 90% mental." But for a sport, how can that be? The mental game can be what separates great golfers from decent golfers. The mental aspect of the sport is so important because, as golf legend Arnold Palmer once said, golf is deceptively simple and endlessly complicated. So Josh, as someone who has played the game of golf at a high level for a long time now, how would you analyze what Nicklaus said? Do you find that the game of golf is more mental than anything? And if so, how have you seen that in your own game?
Yeah, Jack Nicklaus, he's one of the greatest golfers of all time. He couldn't be more right about golf being more mental than anything. Obviously, one of the main parts of golf is physically swinging the club. But if your head is not there and you're not there mentally, you can obviously ruin how you play. You're never going to have a perfect round or have everything go your way. So it's important to stay locked in. And, I've seen this on the course of myself, going for like one of my best scores, getting to those last couple holes, and I kind of lose my mental headspace and kind of ruin my own round just in my head, not even how I swing the club. So it's very important to stay mentally locked in. And yeah, Nicklaus couldn't be more right about what he said.
Not to touch on that, that was very well said. Focus is something that so many golf psychologists and sports psychologists talk about when they speak on the mental side of golf. What does it truly mean to be focused when you're on the golf course? Is it something that you can kind of learn? Is it just taking it one shot at a time? Is it, blocking out distractions? Like, what does it mean to really be focused on the golf course, in your opinion?
Yeah, so, I can see this a lot with, like my beginner golfer friends. They're not really focused. They get frustrated, and they kind of lose that focus, and they ruin how they play. I think having complete focus on the golf course, is having complete mental presence. You're not thinking about the last bad shot you hit, the last good shot you hit, or your score, or, what might happen next, but you're just fully engaged with the shot that's right in front of you. You have to be able to quiet distractions, whether it's like people you're playing with, even like something like the wind or your own frustration. You just have to get all your attention on that shot you're taking right in front of you. So I think the main thing is probably just quieting the distractions, outside distractions, and trying to keep locked in mentally yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Now, something that I always hear about is to imagine the shot before you hit it. Picture a good result and picture the ball flying perfectly into the green. A lot of this has to do with the fact that, negative thoughts before a shot is quite possibly the worst thing to have in your mind, if you're not picturing a good shot and you don't expect yourself to hit a good shot, it becomes very hard to do that. Do you implement this into your game, and how can this positive mindset and the expectation of hitting a good shot and envisioning the shot lead to successful play and good individual shots as a whole?
Yeah, this is something I didn't do when I first started golfing. Was I always thought about a bad shot just because I really couldn't hit a good shot. But now, I can believe in myself, and I always picture those good shots because that's gonna keep you there mentally. And if you're there mentally, you're gonna be able to deliver on that shot. So having a positive mindset, it's really important. And yeah, I mean, anything negative is just gonna be bad, and it's not gonna lead you to play well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in my head. And to kind of finish up with the nuances of the mental side of golf when playing, I just wanted to touch on the theme of short memory. You kind of touched on it, like one shot, it doesn't define a round, and if you're dwelling on past shots or shots that didn't go your way, it's not going to lead to good performance. Even pros hit some bad shots in their rounds, but how they bounce back significantly differs from your everyday, average Joes on the golf course. I've seen in my own game how short memory is so important, because there are times when, one bad shot gets to my head. I question everything about my swing, the technicalities of my swing, and very rarely does any good come from that. When I get in my own head and I'm thinking about every step in the swing because I hit one bad shot, the next shot has a far worse chance of being good compared to if I was, practicing a short memory and could let the bad shots go. What can you say about, the idea of having a short memory in golf and kind of putting the bad breaks, bad shots, bad bounces, in the past and moving to the next shot without any, doubts in your head?
Yeah, this is super important. I mean, you got to take it hole by hole, shot by shot. It's really hard to move on from a bad shot, but if you get up to the tee and you hit a great shot, you're just going to forget about it. So, I like to take it shot by shot and kind of forget about what I did bad last time. And yeah, short memory in golf is probably something everybody faces. And with beginner golfers, they're probably pretty bad at this because they're always going to think about their bad shots and they can't really move on. So it is important to move on from that last bad shot and face the next shot without doubts.
Yeah, 100%. Even, times for me, and I'm sure a lot of golfers out there, even after a round, if I play well but I had a couple bad shots, those are the shots that kind of stick with me. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish I could, dwell more on the positive shots that I hit, but the negative shots stick out a lot, and that's even after a round. So when I'm in the heat of battle on the course, having a short memory is so important because, if you're thinking about a bad shot and a bad result, it really does just throw you off. You mentioned presence earlier, and, not having a short memory can kind of take that presence in the round away from you, and it doesn't really result in good a lot of the time. I also wanted to just note a study by the Journal of Sports in 2018. It said that amateur golfers who scored high on pressure handling showed more consistent performance. And they have the statistic as out of 6, the pressure handling individuals, they were 5.31 out of 6. Now, that compared to someone who doesn't, handle pressure very well, it's going to be a much lower score and probably not going to be as good of golfers as a whole. This is just good context into how important the mental aspect of golf really is, because it really does better your play and help you perform better. But we're going to switch gears a little bit here and talk about how to handle the mental side of golf, some kind of tips and tricks into handling the mental side of golf and what you can do. I have some tips that were published by Sticks Golf, and I want to break down a few of them and get your thoughts on them, and I'll chime in with my opinion on them as well. Tip 1 that Sticks Golf had out of, a couple of them that I picked out was to play one hole at a time. I know you mentioned that a minute ago. Sticks Golf says, breaking the game into manageable chunks reduces overwhelming and mental fatigue. Set small goals like aiming for par on the current hole. Celebrate small wins like making a good drive or a well-executed putt. Give the same energy to these victories as you do mistakes. What are your thoughts on this tip, and how have you implemented it into your game? How are you playing one hole at a time, and how does that help, and what are the positives of this in your eyes?
Yeah, this is definitely a valuable piece of advice for any golfer and a good tip. Playing one hole at a time, can keep you calm, can keep your confidence there throughout the round. And when you start to think ahead, I mean, you're gonna lose focus and make mistakes. So it's important to break it into smaller, manageable parts, and you got to make sure to reset mentally after each hole and just forget about that last hole. I think this helps me a lot. It just kind of helps me bounce back from a bad hole or a bad shot, and instead of letting the frustration take me over, I know I just have to remind myself that I can't do anything about that last hole and I got to focus on this one.
Yeah, 100%. I can see that in my game too. A lot of times, even I'll look ahead to later holes, even not dwelling on past holes, but I'll look ahead. Like if I'm going for a good score and everything's going well, and I could shoot my personal best score, I'm looking ahead to the last two holes when I'm on the third to last hole. Thinking what I have to do to shoot the score I want to on those holes when I'm currently playing a hole and not as present on that hole as I should be. Another tip that Sticks Golf mentioned was to control your breathing. Sticks Golf says breathing can calm nerves and improve focus. Use rhythmic breathing to manage your nerves during critical golfing moments. Before shots, inhale deeply through your nose, hold for a moment, exhale slowly. You'll be surprised how different you feel when you use this technique. I think a lot of times adrenaline is going in golf, in my opinion, and you're kind of flustered at times and you're not taking your time and breathing and really concentrating on the shot. Breathing is such a basic human function, and a lot of people don't take the time in daily life, let alone golf, to take deep breaths and really come back down to earth and focus on the task at hand. So what are your thoughts on how breathing can help your golf game, whether it's settling your heart rate before a shot and things of that nature?
Yeah, this is a great tip. It's funny because I usually don't use this breathing method at all. I kind of just get over the ball and just hit it. That's just how I play. I never really breathe. I never really thought about that. But yeah, now I can see, what you mentioned, how it can calm your nerves. I think it's super important, especially after a bad shot or, an important shot. It's good to just calm down and be completely focused. So it's something I got to start trying because, it can help me a lot too. I think this is, important for beginner golfers as well. I mean, they can be frustrated a lot, so just being able to breathe and calm down, that can really help them.
Yeah, 100%. I honestly don't do that a lot in my golf game, and it's something that I probably need to start implementing because my heart rate does get up, as I said, and it makes it very difficult if you're, kind of anxious over the ball. The final tip that I kind of wanted to touch on is to quote-unquote focus on the process, not the outcome. This can be difficult for people because we as humans are so outcome driven, and in golf, it's happened in my game. You can hit a great shot, flush the ball well, take a good divot, but you get one bad kick or you end up in a bunker or a bad spot, and that ends up being what's on your mind. You're not focused on how well you hit the ball. You're focused on the result, and that the result wasn't that great. Do you see that as an important part of the game? Do you implement this or struggle to implement this into your game personally? Because I think a lot of times I'm always, it's hard for me to take the positives in the process as more important than the outcome itself. Golf is a game where you get a final score at the end of the round, and that's the outcome. Everything in golf is outcome oriented in life as a whole. So, how does focusing on the process and not just the final outcome, matter when speaking on the mental side of golf?
Yeah, you're so right. Like you said, I mean, humans are outcome driven in golf. That's an outcome driven sport. All you're thinking about is the outcome, your final score on that scorecard. So, like you said, I played golf with you the other day, Baden, and I hit probably one of my best shots of the day on a par 3, but it wasn't on the green, and I hit the ball really well, but I wasn't happy with the outcome because it wasn't close to the hole. So, I think it is important to focus on the process, like you said. Focus on that last good shot you hit, even if it didn't end up, where you wanted it to be. And yeah, I do implement this into my game. I kind of, I do struggle with this actually in my game. Like I said before about hitting a good shot, but it's not where I wanted, and that's where that outcome driven, from humans come from.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of times, when I golf, like I said before, it's all about the outcome. But there are things you can do to stay present. I think this tip as a whole helps you kind of stay present, because if you're focused on the positives, in the process and what you do well and not just a negative outcome, it makes the next shot, it makes the next step in your round that much easier, when you go in with a positive attitude, because you're focusing on, how you hit the ball, how it sounded, how it felt, and not just where it ended up. The last kind of, theme and topic that I want to touch on is just some thoughts on the mental aspect of golf and our personal perspective and advice on it. I think there are a lot of good ideas and a lot of good ways to better your mental game in golf and your golf game as a whole. But my personal biggest piece of advice would be to not think so much about your swing and the mechanics on the course. I've always been so technical with sports. I've played baseball my entire life and now golf for a couple of years and really loved the sport, but I was the same way in baseball. I would think about every movement and every second in the golf swing, and I would step over the ball, and that's what I'd be thinking about. I wouldn't trust my athleticism or the skill or, the reps and practice that I put in on the driving range outside of, playing on the course, and I would get in my own head and in my own way. I think there's a healthy balance of thinking about your swing and having swing thoughts and swing cues when you're golfing that help you play well. But for me, when I think so deeply on the mechanics of the swing, that's where, I don't trust my athleticism, and it's not fluid, and I can hit some bad shots, and, when I'm hitting bad shots, the mental side of the game goes down. So mentally, my biggest piece of advice would be to tweak things and think about your swing when you're on the practice, greens and the practice facilities. That's when you want to, mess around with your swing and think about the different movements and mechanics on the course. Whatever game you brought that day, that's what you play with, that's what you have. So my best piece of advice would be to, however you're playing that day, whatever swing you got, you can make minor adjustments, but save the big adjustments for the driving range, and don't think too deeply about, all the mechanics in the swing. Do you have any, specific advice, Josh, to leave the viewers with on how, they can better their mental game, or certain things maybe they should stay away from thinking about and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I agree with you about not overthinking mechanics during a round. That can really mess a golfer up and, what they're thinking. My advice would be probably focus on your routine and your mindset rather than hitting that perfect shot. What's going to separate your good rounds from bad rounds is how quickly you can recover. And to have like a consistent routine, taking a breath like we said earlier, and just being able to commit fully is super important. And you got to keep things in perspective also. I feel like golf is a game that tests patience more than, your skill in yourself. And you got to take those small wins that you have on the course, those good shots, and just kind of carry those home with you, even if the score that you had isn't what you wanted. So yeah, it really is just you and the ball. So you gotta focus on that, and like you said, try not to overthink some things.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people can relate the game of golf to life, and we all know how challenging life can be sometimes mentally. Golf is a game where there's gonna be a lot of ups and downs, and the real impact is on how well you can bounce back, how well you can handle the mental struggles and the adrenaline, the anxiety sometimes. It is clear that, the game of golf takes a lot of mental fortitude and like you said, patience is a great word, and can either hurt your game or take it to the next level. Josh, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and for your insight. Do you have any final words to leave the listeners with or anything like that?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ben. It's been great, talking about golf. I've never really done something like this before, especially the mental side of golf. Super important part of golf. If I had to leave the viewers with something, I would say that, golf is going to have its high and lows, but, what defines you as a golfer is really how you handle those moments. You just have to stay composed, trust yourself, trust how you can swing the club, and you got to remember why you're there in the first place is because you love golf, and you're going to keep coming back. So you just have to enjoy it and stay in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. That is it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you'd be so kind, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And I hope you come back around for the next episode. Bye, everyone. Thank you again, everyone, for the second episode of the Tap In Par podcast. I really hope that you took away a lot of interesting things from that discussion with Josh about the mental side of golf. Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed. Please come back next time where we're going to touch on a little bit more about the professional side of golf and the PGA Tour and the LIV. Talk about some key players, some all-time greats, and really dive into professional golf. As always, like and subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, please leave a comment, and thank you again.